another video. So as I was recording my previous one, another topic came to my mind and I wanted to share my thoughts about that as well. So yesterday I watched a video by Aaron Doughty. Probably a lot of you guys know him. He's quite popular on YouTube nowadays. And he was talking about setting boundaries and how your inner world is like a garden and you should put a fence around your garden as the boundary, because otherwise people can just enter your garden and start to trample your plants and then just leave. Without the fence they can just do that, right? So it's important to have these boundaries. And me too, I used to be a person who was too afraid to set the boundaries, and not necessarily boundaries with doing certain tasks that I really didn't want to do, or like, practical stuff, but more like emotional boundaries where I didn't really communicate the things that I am able to do or provide, and the things that I expect from other people, and the things that I think they would need or they would want to do. I was afraid to step up, to share it, and then it caused me to feel resentful after a while, because it felt like people were always stepping over my boundaries, but I didn't say it. So I felt hurt and pain and sadness and anger even when that happened. But of course it was my own responsibility because I didn't state my boundaries. Now the thing he shares is that right now he feels that he is more in his body, he's more centered, more present, and this immediately creates more boundaries. In that state, the boundaries are more easy to keep up. The fence is stronger when you're centered in your body. And he talks about the fact that as an empath, sometimes these boundaries just disappear because you take on the inner state of the other person and you take it as your own. So you need this boundary between you and the other, because otherwise you will completely take on the state of the other person. For example, if somebody is disappointed or acts disappointed, then you would take on their disappointment and you would feel guilty, and this has a negative impact on your state of mind. And he now is going through a phase where he realizes that, okay, I have to separate myself from their disappointment. It's not my stuff, it's their stuff. That's what he says. And to a certain degree, I agree that it's very important to not get sucked into other people's emotional states, because sometimes it can be that you're enabling them to behave in a certain way when actually they need to do the complete opposite, right? You want to draw a hard boundary so they are not enabled anymore to behave in negative, destructive ways. This is important to understand and to realize that. So it's crucial that you can make this distinction between, okay, that's their stuff and this is my stuff. However, I do think that it requires a little bit of a more nuanced approach, because you could also completely shut yourself off and build a very strong fence and never allow yourself to take on their emotional state, their internal state. It's important, if you want to connect with somebody, if you want to feel like this can be a shared experience and it can be a very healing experience, if you allow yourself to open the fence a little bit, if you completely close the fence and you see it's their stuff, it's not my stuff, then you will start to feel very lonely. I think it can lead to a lot of loneliness when you do that, because you are so protecting yourself, so much protecting yourself, avoiding taking on the energies of other people, that it can cause you to feel very separated and very alone. So you want to find the right balance between connecting and guarding your own garden in a way. You can open the fence, you can tell them, hey, you can walk into my garden, you can look around, but just if you tramp on a plant here, then I will have to expel and I will close my fence, right? But if you build a super strong fence that nobody can look through, that is that is going to make you feel very, very alone. So it's important to know the difference between enabling someone to act in a way that is not okay, or allowing yourself to open up to them and be vulnerable and allow yourself to take on their emotional state, to take on their perspective, because this can then allow you to really understand what they are going through, what they are feeling. And I think it's important to learn the difference between somebody who is just sucking out the energy or someone who is actually sharing their perspective with you and they want to feel understood, they want to feel seen. It's important to make a distinction. Like, the way I do that usually is when I can feel that somebody is really out there to abuse me, to suck out the energy, to make me do certain things, or you can feel it almost. It's like a negative energy that they are trying to suck out things from you. Or it's really a person who just shares that, okay, I feel very afraid and I do this and this and this, and so you know that they are acting out of fear and they feel helpless, they feel powerless, but they have the right intentions. They don't want to hurt you, but because of the fear they do things that might hurt you. This is a crucial distinction you have to make. If you meet a total stranger who is like sucking out your energy, then of course you need to put up the fence, and their disappointment or their negativity is their stuff. I agree with that, even though I still think that it can be useful to acknowledge that they are suffering. You can keep the fence a little bit open where you can see that, okay, I can see that you're suffering, because if you would not be suffering, then you would not behave the way you do. And you have to find a balance between enabling people to do this, to engage in destructive behavior, and seeing their suffering, because this can be a very healing experience in and of itself. If you break through the negative behavior, if you can look past it and you can understand there is this hurt, traumatized human being who is afraid. If you can do that, if you can see that in a person whenever they are feeling upset or angry or disappointed, if you can see that, that is going to be such a healing experience for the person. So in the example of that he gave, that he could feel that some people can react disappointed when they ask him out and he shares with them he doesn't feel like hanging out, or he doesn't feel like he has time to do that, and they are disappointed about it, then he says that, okay, it's their stuff, it's not mine. However, I do think it can be useful to acknowledge their disappointment. You can say, hey, I can see that you're disappointed. I think it's okay to feel like that. However, I want you to understand that right now I feel like I need to do this, and I want to do this and this and this, and I care about you, but please understand my situation as well. So you can show your understanding for their situation. That doesn't mean you have to take on their disappointment. That doesn't mean that you have to feel guilty about it, right? You don't have to shut the fence in order to prevent feeling guilty and taking on the responsibility for their disappointment. That's not what I think you should do. What I do think you can do, I don't like to speak in too much shoulds. What I think you can do is voicing your understanding for their reaction, validating the way they feel, and letting them know that, hey, I have good intentions, I am not here to hurt you, I am just stating that I want to do this right now and I don't want to hang out. This is actually a healthy way of communicating your boundaries to another person. And if they don't accept that, if they don't understand that, if they are still upset, well then indeed it is their stuff, because you tried your best. However, I do think it's important to at least empathize with their reaction, to at least acknowledge that they feel the way they do. And after you've done that and they are still too stubborn to let it go, then of course it's their stuff. Then you don't need to stay with it, because you expressed your side of the story, you empathized with their side of the story, you took on their perspective, you share with them that I understand what you're going through, I can understand that you can feel disappointed, especially if you long for a connection with me right now and it feels like I can't give that to you right now. Okay, I understand that. However, I still want to work on my own project right now, or I still feel like I want to prioritize this part of my life, and I don't want to hang out. And it's so difficult for people to deal with that sometimes. So then if they get all upset and angry about it, okay, at some point you have to decide, okay, I empathize with your perspective. Now I think it's your stuff, but it doesn't mean that you have to put up the fence completely and prevent yourself from, shut yourself off from empathizing with what they are feeling. That doesn't mean that you have to take on and take responsibility for their feelings. I think that it's important to understand that, okay, at some point it's their responsibility and not mine. However, I do believe that in certain relationships, very close ones, friends, really close friends, close partners, I do think that there is some responsibility there, right? Like, I want to believe that my own feelings are my own responsibility 100% of the time, and the other person has to take responsibility for their feelings 100% of the time. I agree that you have to take 100% responsibility for your own feelings. However, I do believe that when you agree on having a mutual relationship, is it a friendship, a partnership, even like a family relationship, when you agree on connecting together, I do believe that you bear a certain responsibility towards the other person too. Your behavior affects them, even though it can often be their interpretation of your behavior. Sometimes you have to understand, or at least I have to understand, that your behavior affects the other person, so it's partly your responsibility as well. You want to guard your intentions. You want to be aware that, okay, my behavior affects this person. Why? Because you're connected. You're connected. You share yourself vulnerably with the other person. And so this vulnerable connection is vulnerable to both of your behavior. So you want to make sure that you also take responsibility for your actions towards the other person. And of course, if they respond disproportionately, then it's something that they need to take responsibility for. But at the same time, your behavior can cause them to feel certain ways. And this idea of taking full responsibility for your own emotions, I agree, and it's a very empowering idea. And I believe that in theory, it's the ultimate dream, right? Everybody takes 100% responsibility for their feelings. So nobody suffers from that anymore. But I think that in practice, it's very, very different. And you need to take into consideration that you also bear a responsibility for the other person. Try to think of it this way. When you get a child, in the beginning stages, you bear complete responsibility for the baby because it's totally, utterly helpless. So you are 100% responsible for the well-being of the baby, right? The older the baby gets, the more agency it develops, the more personal responsibility it can create, it can build, it can learn, right? So the more personal responsibility it has. However, I don't think that we will reach a point where we can attain 100% responsibility for everything in our own lives. I wanted to believe that, and in theory it works beautiful. However, I think that in practice, in real life, it's different, because growing up, we all have this inner child within us still. And this inner child still doesn't have the capacity to take full responsibility for everything, you know? Just like a child, you don't expect it to take full responsibility for everything that it does or that happens to it, you know. Treat your inner child with the same attitude and understand that it's still a part of me. So especially in romantic relationships, close partnerships, this is a crucial thing to remember, that you still have an inner child inside and your partner does too. And these inner childs, they sometimes need to be taken care of, and they sometimes can't take care of their own needs. Of course, you as the adult can take care of your inner child's needs. Yes, I agree. However, sometimes when you are the inner child, when you are in that space, then you could need somebody to take care of you in that moment. And it's okay. This is what human vulnerability looks like, you know, allowing these situations to be and trusting your loved ones to take care of that inner child in the moment where you need it most. This is a gift. This is a gift because you can allow yourself to be taken care of. And the older we get, the more so it's a beautiful arc, if you will. As a baby, you're completely helpless. You need to be taken care of. The people around you bear responsibility for your well-being. You start growing up, you gain more agency, you gain more knowledge, strength, power, empowerment. You build your capacity for personal responsibility. You reach a peak, but it won't be 100%. I don't believe it will be 100%. I used to, but now I believe otherwise. And then it starts to decline again, because the older you get, the more dependent you become again on others. But I believe that this complete independent state, we never reach it. There's always the inner child and then the old declining part of ourselves. So it's like an asymptote. You never reach the 100% personal responsibility. And yes, I think that it's a very important idea and belief to cultivate, because you want to live in a growth mindset. You want to live with an attitude that I can take care of myself, I can work towards my own goals, I can make the right decisions, I can take responsibility for my life, because this is the most empowering thought to have. Because what else can you do? Put yourself in a victim mindset and blame and curse everything and everyone around you for all the bad circumstances that are your life right now? Well, it's okay, because I think that this is a crucial part of moving through the different stages, right? I feel like you need to allow yourself the time to be in this victim mindset, to feel like a victim. And then you can move past it, you can grow, and you can decide to step out of that. And the stepping out of that is actually the action of taking responsibility for where you're at in your life right now. However, this can be in perfect synergy with other people. You can allow them to help you, you can allow them to support you. And so this taking full responsibility for where you're at in your life, in theory, it's all very beautiful. But in practice, I think it's a little bit more nuanced. And of course, you want to adopt a mindset where, yes, I am responsible for where I'm at in my life right now. But there is this dangerous flip side to this idea, where you can start to feel guilty about not being able to move forward, or not being able to get out of a very, very dark and difficult place. And this can close you off from the support and the help that is available out there if you allow to outsource a little bit of your responsibility. I'm not saying 50%, 100%. No, I'm saying 10%, 20%. Outsource a little bit of your responsibility, and it can take off the pressure, it can relieve the burden. Other people are here to share this journey with you. You know, allow them to do that. Don't be too proud about taking full responsibility for everything all the time, because I think that this can also lead to this elitist kind of thinking that I take full responsibility for everything, so I am better than. Humble yourself a little bit. Sometimes there is things you're not even entitled to take a responsibility for, in a way. Does it make sense? So I just wanted to share my thoughts that yes, building a fence and not taking on other people's problems as your own, especially the negative, hurtful ones, I agree with that. You have to be careful with allowing other people, enabling other people to engage in behavior that is not right. I agree with that. However, I want to nuance this point a little bit and say that be wary of building a too thick, strong fence, because that will dissociate you from everything and it can make you feel very, very lonely. So allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to open up to other people's more negative energies. Allow yourself to empathize. Take on their perspective. Look where they're coming from. Voice your thoughts. Voice your validation of how they feel. Tell them that you understand where they're coming from. However, you still choose to do what you want to do because you don't do it with the bad intentions. You don't do it to hurt them. You do it to protect your own boundaries. You do it because this is what you need for yourself, and you respectfully share these boundaries with the other person. And if they then don't accept it, then it's their problem. Then it's their stuff. And you can still show your support, but ultimately then it's their responsibility. But taking 100% full responsibility for everything all the time is also a pitfall you want to be wary of. And you want to allow yourself to sometimes outsource a little bit of your responsibility to the people that love you. So to end this video, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for your time, your attention. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for looking inwards and thus making this world a better place one step at a time. And as always, thanks for watching. Talk soon, guys.